What's up? You might have noticed my neck is bare today, and that's for a very particular reason. I have no shame, and I wanted to express that because I've noticed something very eerie on the internet lately, and it just bothers me and it digs into me a little bit, so let's begin. Alright, so I watch a lot of fashion videos, as you may have heard on previous videos on my channel. I am, into fashion, I like to wear clothes, I like to dress up, and I like to get inspiration, so I watch a lot of, pretty popular channels. And not just that, I watch Get Ready With Me's and all sorts of different channels of all sorts of different types. And I've noticed a very common theme that people will, and they say it almost jokingly, but they also mean it seriously. They'll say they'll be like, oh, sorry this angle's a little bit weird, I just don't want you to see my feet. And they'll be like, I got some new heels today, but I can't show you guys that because you don't pay me enough. And they're serious though, because they literally will do everything to avoid showing their feet. And it's like, I get it, privacy matters, right? If you don't want to show something, you don't have to. I don't need to see your feet, I don't particularly want to, but I've noticed that it's really only feet that people talk about. They don't mind showing their faces, and there's plenty of girls on there who don't mind when they get changed. They even, show themselves in their undergarments for the process of changing, and they're not uncomfortable with that, which I personally would be. That's just something I would cut out. I've even literally seen a video of a girl changing her clothes in the middle of a Goodwill store. Like, literally taking her real clothes off and changing into this stuff, and then putting it back on the rack. Now, that may have been rage bait, I don't know, but the fact is she actually did that in real time, in real life. And she didn't seem to be bothered by it, but as soon as feet come up, it's suddenly an issue, and I wanted to know why. So I did some light research a few seconds ago, before getting on here. Foot fetishes are not that common. Only 14% of Americans are actually reported to have a foot fetish, right? So that's a pretty small number. And the majority of people with foot fetishes are gay or bisexual men. Only 5.5% of Americans are reported to be gay men. And, I'm not just calling out gay dudes, right? There's all sorts of people with foot fetishes, and you're not a freak if you do, right? That's just a matter of preference. But to exclusively fear that and nothing else, because you do need to understand that every kind of body part, everything that exists in this world, someone has a fetish for. You don't know who that person is. You don't know who is in your comment section, who is watching your video right now, who's out there. You don't know who's in line behind you at Walmart, what the kind of things they're into. You just waltz on through life assuming that, they're just a normal person. You don't know what kind of freaky activities they get into at night, and they don't know what kind of freaky activities you get into at night. And that's for a good thing. You don't need to, right? That's fine. But to just assume that every day when you post your video, you post your content, that there are several people in your comment sections, or the majority of people in your comment sections with a foot fetish, it is honestly baffling to me, because there's a good chance there are no feet people in that chat, right? And there's a possibility that there are, but there's a good chance that there might not even be that day, or period. And instead, there's somebody who's into ears, and you've been showing your ears this entire time, and they've been getting off on it, and you don't even know that. Everyone is into everything, so, no matter how hard you try, there's always that possibility that somebody is getting into that. And whether, yeah, I get it, they could sell the images, right? Yeah. But who's to say that they are? Who's to say that they aren't? Who's to say that they're not zooming in on your ears and selling pictures of those? You just don't know. You just can't say one thing or the other. So to exclusively pick out feet, it's just, I like teeth. No, not in a fetishy kind of way, but teeth interest me. And I like to see, a unique smile. And, people would probably feel creeped out if I was admiring their teeth when I watch their videos. I don't go home at night and, get all freaky about it, but, there probably are people that do. You just don't know. You just don't know who's watching it, who's into it. And, there's no need to worry about it because honestly, at this point, if you're afraid of that, just might as well not post any content, period. Even my hands, look, this is all I've got, right? This is all I got is this mutant hand. And I've experienced in personal time some weirdos making comments about my nails. Like, typically old men at my job, oh, you got such pretty fingernails. I don't even want to begin to explain where they've taken that. There have been some very strange, suspicious comments. Some guy suggested that I should scratch his back with my fingernails, and that his friend liked my nails because his ex-girlfriend used to paint his nails, and they broke up, and that imprinted on him. Look, do you want me to go into detail? I'll tell you the story. It was Valentine's Day. I was working the morning shift, and this middle-aged gentleman comes in, and, he looks good for his age. He's, very, he's thin, and he's clean-shaven, and he seems very healthy. And he comes in, and I've never seen him before that I can remember, and I give him his receipt to sign, and when I hand it to him, he notices my nails. And
he says, you always have your fingernails done so nice. And I said,
thank you, but I don't think I've ever seen you before. And he goes, oh, well, my girlfriend used to paint my nails for me all the time. She was a nail tech, and she practiced on me, and, well, we broke up, so it always imprinted on me. I said, oh, that's sad. Why'd you break up? He said, well, she was always, 20 years older than me, so it didn't really work out. And it was, kind of weird. And then he brought his friend in, and then, from that day on, everything was normal until, I'm gonna say a week later, his friend came in by himself that night and started talking to me. I had forgotten about him, and he's carrying on the conversation we had on Valentine's Day, asking me very personal questions about, my parents and where I live and where I came from, and just constantly bugging me. And then, I don't know how I brought it up, but I told him, I like to read Edgar Allan Poe. And, just a normal conversation, right? I didn't think he was creepy at this point. His friend was, but not him. And then, bro was trying to rizz me up by, once upon a midnight dreary, there I wandered, weep and weary, reciting it, and then, halfway through The Raven, he goes, I'll stop. And I just ignored it. In my head, I'm like, yeah, please do. Bro, I'm not... that was literally so cringe. Bro, yeah, I've read The Raven 20 times. Do I have it memorized? No, but just why are you trying to rizz me up, bro? I am barely 20 years old. And then he's telling me about this house that he's moving into, right? And I'm like, he tells me it's an old house. So I lightheartedly say, well, I hope it isn't haunted. And he goes, I don't care if it is. I said, all right. I mean, as long as the ghosts are cool and all that, you can hang out with them. He's like, yeah. And I was like, as long as they're not scratching you in the middle of the night. And he said, yeah. I mean, unless they had nails like you, and they could scratch my back if they have nails like you. Huh?
Huh? Yeah, that was weird. So, yeah. It's not just...
Your pretty feet. It's everything, dude. Even having your nails done nice. Is that gonna make me stop wearing acrylic, fake nails? No. I like it. It makes me confident, and I like the way it looks. Do I do it all the time? No. But I don't do it for other people. I don't do it for the compliments. I like it because it looks cool. As long as it's functional. I like the way it looks. Mine are falling off at this point, but you know what? I don't care. It ain't about that. And it's you're not gonna stop me from doing my nails. And like I said, this is all I got, man. I got this mutant hand, and that's all I got. So I can't just not have my hand, right? So if somebody's gonna be a creep on here, then they can just go be a creep somewhere else. I can't just not have my hand. Just like you just can't not have your feet. And I get it. If you don't want to show your feet, you don't have to show your feet. But it's just, why is it exclusively feet? It's like the only fetish people know about and talk about on the internet, but everyone has it. I get it. It is the most common and most well-known one, you know, because nobody sees your feet, right? You're always wearing socks and shoes. So, like a private part, it's something that's always concealed. It's that mystery, that forbiddenness that people are drawn to, perhaps. I mean, everyone's into things for different reasons. But it still begs the question, why are you so, like, bro, they're just feet, alright? They're just feet. You don't have to show them, but at least acknowledge the fact that there's other things that people can be into, and, like, I don't know. I'm not mad. I promise you I'm not angry about this. It's just been something that's kind of, like, been obscure to me. It's something I've often wondered about for a few months now. Like, why is that all anyone ever, you know, talks about? Like, it's weird. It's like, you're not afraid to, like, pull your, you know, pull your hair back behind your ear, even though someone might be into ears, but when it comes to your feet, that's where you draw the line. Like, alright, okay. That's fine. Whatever you're comfortable with, you can put out as much as you want on the internet, leave out as much as you want. It's totally your choice. I don't really want to see your feet, so it's fine if you don't want to show it, but at least acknowledge that it's unavoidable, and that, you know, a lot of the time there's probably not any people. Also, another point I have to make is, just because they're feet doesn't mean that person is attracted to them, right? People have preferences on the kind of feet they like. Just because it's feet, just because it's feet doesn't mean they like your feet, right? Just like, you know, I like teeth, but I don't like everyone's teeth. I like certain types. Now, I don't start thinking that it's a fetish. I just think that, you know, different smiles are different, and it also depends on the person who has the smile, right? Like, if you have a gap between your teeth, I think that's really cool, but I'm not into, like, you know, very straight white teeth. So there's a preference, you know? There's a preference of things that people like, qualities that people find attractive in other people, or things that people admire, right? Some people, like, really admire certain hair types. Certain people have preferences like, oh, I prefer to see, you know, I prefer blondes. I think blondes are the most pretty, or whatever they're into, right? And it's not necessarily just for sexual reasons. It's literally just like, I think this is really an interesting look, or I think this is really pretty. But if we're talking in terms of fetish, it's not just feet, right? They're not gonna go for any feet. So there's a possibility that there might be someone in your chat who does have a foot fetish, but they don't necessarily like your feet. So you're okay. But I get it, because you don't want them selling pictures or whatever, but you don't know what kind of shady stuff people are into these days. And with AI and stuff, it really makes it hard. But I get it. You want to protect your privacy, and that's totally fine. But let's just be aware of the fact that it's not every foot, right? It's not every person, and it's not just feet. Leave them alone, bro. Leave the dogs alone. It's just feet. You'll be alright. Alright? So, yeah. But then, like, and just because people are into feet doesn't make them evil, horrible people either. You know, maybe they're very respectful and private and very legal about it, and they just, you know, maybe they fall in love with someone romantically, and then they stay in a very committed relationship with that person, and that just happens to be a quality that they love very much about them, is their feet. And that's, you know, that's what they're into in the bedroom or whatever, and then, you know, that's it. Not everyone's dirty and evil about it. Yeah, some people are, but most people are pretty decent about that stuff. So, yeah, if that's it, if you have anything to add to this conversation, feel free to do so. I'm open to it. I want to build community here and have conversations with you guys. Subscribe if you're not already on my channel. I want to reach 50 subs so I can go live and hang out with you guys in real time. And I'll see you later. Bye.